Just keep believing, just keep the faith, you'll see everything's about to change, yeah. It's the start of a brand new day. It's the start of a brand new day. A brand new day. So no matter what you're going through, you can be sure I am there with you. I know you can make it, I know you'll succeed. Now you're standing on the precipice, take a leap of faith cause you won't miss. Work up the courage, you're one step from taking flight. Everything's gonna be alright, yeah. Start of a brand new day. It's the start of a brand new day. Start of a brand new day. It's the start of
Hello, everybody. Welcome from Las Vegas, Nevada, United States, to everybody out in the internet, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on all the different social media channels. Again, coming to you from the end of a very long day of Adobe Summit, and welcome to Adobe Summit After Hours. So this is your opportunity for any of you who wanted to come to Adobe Summit or have always had questions about these type of conferences to be able to kind of participate and engage. It's an ambitious undertaking. And so, truth be told, there's been some technical challenges trying to get some of the different footage that we've captured throughout the day to give you the experience of what it's like to be at this conference, aside from what you're seeing in a lot of the streaming presentations. So it's one thing to see the keynotes. It's one thing to see a lot of the produced content of the learning educational material itself. A lot of things happen at these conferences outside of those sessions. There's the conversations that you're having with some of your colleagues as you're working directly on challenges. You're flipping open the laptop and kind of working in on a Marketo instance, on a Adobe Experience Manager, Adobe Campaigns, all of the other different types of technology that you'll see at this conference. And that doesn't even count all of the different vendors that were present. So today we've had conversations with Microsoft. We've had conversations with an integration platform called Make. We've had really good sessions kind of talking to some of the product leaders inside of Adobe about some of the things that are happening in the future. If you're watching this, it's likely that you've been following along some of the live stream content that's been happening here throughout the day. And there's a lot of really interesting announcements. And it's interesting talking to people here about how they're responding back to some of the announcements around artificial intelligence and buyer personas. So we'll dive into some of that today. I'll show you some of the content that we have. And mind you, this conference has been happening. There was a day yesterday for some of the advocates and the partners and some of the people that are involved in the internal conversations around what's happening with the Adobe Experience Cloud. Tomorrow, there's another set of sessions as well, too. So knock on wood, we'll be working on this tomorrow. I'll probably have some more of the video content that I haven't been able to kind of incorporate in today to share with you as well, too. And some of it we'll probably share after the conference. And I trust that this feed is coming through correctly. Now, mind you, this is different from my home environment. For anybody who's watched any of the Marketo User Group videos that I've been producing on YouTube for years, or any of the Marketo Minutes content, just from some of the different business cases that we've been developing inside a conversion store. So part of that is because we're at a hotel, obviously, or I'm at a hotel, and so the connectivity here is a little bit different as well too. So I apologize in advance if this is a little bit choppy and it's not coming through. Would love it if somebody would put in the comments whether this video is coming through properly, and if you're seeing any problems with any of the presentation tonight, do let me know or send me a private message, because I want to make sure that you have the best experience possible. And mind you, I know that coming to this conference is time and money, and is just a commitment that not everybody can make, especially if you're traveling overseas or for different parts of the world. And so, the idea behind this is to be able to kind of democratize the content a little bit and give you a say in it. So in each of your platforms, if you're on any of the social media channels or you're here in our private connection, if you signed in on the conversionstore.com website, you should have chat capabilities that are available to be able to send out messages. And I want to be able to answer some of your questions and then deal with any issues, any questions that you might have that are around what you've seen at Summit. And if I don't have answers for them, and I likely won't because it's brand new content, then we'll work to be able to find some of those answers or find the relative stakeholders that are here in this one city right now. The combined collective knowledge here is pretty substantial. So, so there's quite a bit here. Now, some of you might be watching this and kind of not have an awareness of Adobe Summit and what this conference is all about. So let's dive in a little bit to some of the content here, and then we'll just talk a little bit about what we're trying to do here. Whoops. And so, let me just update the screen for a minute just to give you a sense of it. But really what's happening here, and I say challenge because what this slide is about is what we're trying to do, which is really present content that is hours old. To be honest with you, I just raced here to get this set up about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours from the last session that was on the Marketo product roadmap for here in 2024. So it's really challenging to grab all of this information and trying to be able to process it, right? There's a reason why you, the viewing audience from home, aren't able to see a lot of these, the full kind of joie de vivre, if you will, of these conferences. It's that there's so many things happening simultaneously here. I can't be present at every single session. I've tried to bring in presentations and speaking sessions and some content from people that were at sessions that I wasn't at or coming in from different areas. And so we'll share some of those out for you. If not tonight, it'll come in tomorrow as well too. So I'll try and kind of share some of those that are live from the floor. If you follow me on LinkedIn, and I'd highly invite you to do that, please, to just search me up on LinkedIn or search for Conversion Store. You can find me related to that. You'll see I've posted some of those videos today as we've taken them. And so we'll probably be doing some LinkedIn live content throughout tomorrow as well too. But the thing that exists that I've been learning about here too, especially these last couple of years since I come to Adobe from the Marketo acquisition. So a lot of my content, a lot of my information is really skewed more towards Marketo just because it's what I'm familiar with. But some of you might be coming at this and coming in from Adobe Analytics or Adobe Target or Campaign or all the other platforms that I'm not familiar with. And so you're going to have a different experience here, and you'll have different stakeholders that you want to talk to than some of the ones that I've been working with. So this is a little bit more of kind of an informal session to be able to kind of compare notes about what I'm familiar with, and then open up discussions for any of you that are looking for information, or you've gone to the conference yourselves. I mean, if you're in Las Vegas as well and you're here at 7:30 at night, watching this, then kudos to you. Thank you for making the investment in yourself and also for this session. But I would be more than happy to invite you into the video conversation to have a dialogue with you as well. That's a lot of what this is about, is kind of being able to kind of share some of this content with you. So one of the things that I think came up here was interesting about software insights. I came to the keynote session a little bit later on. So I missed some of the initial conversation that Shantanu was having and Anil were having. who are just the top executives at Adobe. But I did see some of it, and I talked to some of the other people that were present, that were there, that were just colleagues of mine, and it's really interesting to hear kind of how they're incorporating some of the generative AI products in the Adobe ecosystem to be able to create content en masse that's personalized. I'd welcome any comments or any feedback around that anybody would be willing to share. I think the other piece of that too, and again, there's some content that's here where we spoke with a Microsoft product expert that was at the Microsoft Pavilion, which is a really sizable pavilion, and just talking about some of the enhances in Microsoft Copilot. And for those of you who use Marketo Engage with Microsoft Dynamics CE, customer engagement, I think you'll find that there's some really interesting opportunities when you combine the power and the insights that you get from Marketo Engage with Copilot to be able to populate data for Microsoft Dynamics. So if anybody in your sales team ever says to you, we wish we had more insights that were a little bit more concise that we could use for a go-to-market, you should be looking at some of the technologies that we talked about here today. So that was very interesting. Now I want to play some video content from this. I'm a little hesitant to do it right now. I'm afraid it might crash this computer. So I'm going to hold off on some of these towards the end. If I happen to lose the feed and we have to come to an abrupt halt on this session, fear not. We'll be doing this tomorrow as well too. So we'll clean up some of this. I knew it's the first year that we've done a session like this. I think if you look at last year, we did a live stream that was kind of like this with the Marketo User Group in Brisbane, Australia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Brisbane, Australia. And I thought that was really interesting to be able to kind of compare notes with some of the insights that they have with what I can bring here from Adobe Summit. We'll share more of that type of content. If not tonight, again, it'll be tomorrow, and then we'll kind of, you can sign up on the website, and we'll send more of that out as time goes on. But anyway, we'd love any chats that you want to share if you have other content that you'd like to present. So I'll go through some of these and just thematically talk a little bit more about them, just so that you can kind of see, here's some of the areas of what I saw in this conference. So the other one that I think was interesting was about the session content. So there's different types of sessions that you see. There's the keynote sessions that are the big ones that are on stage. I think tomorrow we have Shaquille O'Neal that's coming on, which will be interesting to talk about his business insights. There's also a lot of breakout sessions. So these are the ones you may have seen me in the agenda in previous years when I was a Marketo champion, talking just about the manufacturing user group, and about using Marketo with event programs and field marketing. Were ones that I've done, but there are dozens upon dozens of sessions. So, and they go through a variety of different topics. So I'm looking forward to more of those sessions tomorrow. I think I didn't have as many today. Today was more of a lab session, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But definitely was an area where, there was a lot of, the big session, I think, for me really was going into the product roadmap session, and just talking a little bit about what's happening in the Marketo ecosystem for 2024. One of the big reasons for coming to this conference for me is to really kind of get a sense of what is the development that's going to happen on the product, right? Like all MarTech products have to have development that happen year over year. And the reason for that really is because the ecosystem and the environment that we operate in as digital marketers is changing, right? There's societal and technological changes that happen. So think about like artificial intelligence and the capability of being able to kind of incorporate that. But then society-wise, if you look at some of the macroeconomic pressures that we have seen in the past year, right? The rising of interest rates, the increasing scarcity of financing for different types of businesses that are in the tech sector that a lot of this B2B marketing initiatives have relied on for years. That shifts budgets, and it also shifts some of the tactics that we use in order to be able to build market share and maintain the market share that we have. So I wouldn't say we're in well, I guess I would say economic turbulence in a way, but there's just ebbs and flows, and that's always going to happen. The degree of and the severity of which it happens is different. But these are important sessions. So let me just skip along to a different session here and just talk a little bit about kind of what the main themes were. So what you can really look forward to in the preliminary session, and I want to preface this with exactly what the product leaders at Marketo were saying, was that this is where we think we're going to spend our time for the upcoming year. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what's going to happen. But their focus is really on going through the history of user-generated features and working on building those and incorporating those into Marketo. So the big giveaway this year, if I can share that, is the idea is they're hopeful. So I'm really being hesitant about committing to this, just as they were at the sessions, about doing some revamping work to the email editor inside of Marketo. And I think people have kind of talked about that a while. That oftentimes to properly incorporate your brand into some of the email collateral that's coming out of Marketo requires development work and HTML coding work and CSS work. We do a lot of it at Conversion Store. I'm going to be honest with you. I get a lot of clients that will come back and ask. And so, we've invested in internal resources to be able to help to kind of build more of the ad hoc or I shouldn't say ad hoc, probably customized experience for the branding that you want inside of these email templates. So that's a big piece. The second one was a little bit more, they talked about this more from the standpoint of buyer committees. And so there's some product launches that were coming out in the live stream that was talking about, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, but it's Adobe customer journey analyzer for B2B specifically. And so my recollection is that there is a customer journey analyzer product that already exists in the Adobe ecosystem. Would love if somebody wants to put comments up and correct me on this, because it's just not an area that I'm as actively familiar with. But, I would say that that's something that they're trying to put into place in the product roadmap. Now it's going to completely integrate with Marketo Engage. It's not there, it's to work alongside it. And the idea behind it is, as you are working through being able to build buyers through your customer journeys inside of Marketo, often that's done at a person or a contact level. If you think about it from like a CRM or a database marketing representation. What the product leaders were really saying in today's session is yes, that's still a valid way to kind of go about it, the individual session, but because of the economic pressures that people have and the need to be able to justify a purchase across multiple stakeholders inside of your company, a buying committee, in previous years, you'd hear that more around like account-based marketing, that really they want to be able to start building products that will allow you to be able to take some of the engagement scoring that you're using, the behavioral, the demographic scoring, the person scores that you're getting in Marketo right now from the behavioral data that they're capturing, and then applying that across an entire enterprise, an entire account. Like, let's not use enterprise because your market, not mine, your target market might not be an enterprise. It might be mid-market, it might be SMB. And so really, we haven't had, there are some interesting examples about, some of the ways that Marketo smart lists work to be able to build up content, or target audiences, I should say, to be able to segment. And so, you might look at that, and I think one of the use cases, if I remember this correctly, and because it's only an hour and a half old in my mind at the time of this recording, was what if you want to be able to measure the percentage of people inside of the target audience of a company? So let's say there's 6 people in the buying committee, right? There's a decision maker and an influencer and a power user, a champion, whatever term you want to call that. Every company is going to have different terms that they want to use in it. But how do you measure the percentage that the threshold that most of those people? So in my example here, 3 of the 6 people, once you pass that point, you're starting to reach the majority of people that have bought into the concept of making a purchase decision. You can't really measure that in one smart list right now. But some of the features that were being proposed in this discussion were that you would start to have features that would give you more insights to be able to do that. Now, it'll be interesting to see how the data structure behind that works. I'm kind of curious to dive into the product to see what that's all about. But I think it could give you some really interesting insights if that's a play. If you're looking to be able to make to go to market based off of account-based marketing, then really those are insights that could be really helpful for you to be able to scale out those efforts at a broader scale. The last thing, and this gets kicked to death a lot this year around artificial intelligence. So I don't really want to repeat a lot of it because I think a lot of it was in the presentations and a lot of it were on features, products that we just don't work with as much, being kind of digitally driven, digitally based marketers and so things like Adobe Firefly and some of the other generative AI features that were discussed in the keynote. They're not areas that they're all relatively new. They're all areas that I think that you will see some of the basic presenters that will be on those sessions at the summit.adobe.com website will probably do better justice than I could to those at the moment. And I think that's true of a lot of people is we're kind of looking at this and looking through, okay, where is artificial intelligence on the Gartner hype cycle, right? Like where, are we in the trough of disillusionment? Are we at the peak of overexpected expectations, if I remember the name of that correctly? I don't know. I think the verdict is still out for that. But anyway, that was an area that was talked about a lot. So it's kind of taking, okay, you have a digital asset manager and you're trying to populate and create content at scale using generative AI to be able to do that. So the success that you have in that will be interesting to see. I think that's to be determined at this point in time, at the time of this recording. But who knows? We'll see what happens in hindsight. Hindsight being 2020. So the other thing was like networking events. Let me see if I can pull up an event on the on some of the different sessions that were happening on the shop floor. I found those incredibly interesting. It was really neat to see, there's the kind of novelties, I want to say it kind of politely, about, some of the things you could win this, you could win that, there's all these different giveaways. To me, I find the most interesting thing, and maybe it's just because I've been to a lot of these now, is it's more interesting to me to kind of get some of the experiences and to take away that knowledge and to go away. I've got enough stress balls in my closet or T-shirts and or backpacks and things like that, right? And carrying that home seems to be a bit more of an obligation than a benefit. I do like getting books and anything that increases my knowledge. I found that really interesting. So, when we were at, I was at a conference last fall that was the Pavilion Communities Go-to-Market Summit. Not to cross promote too much, but I thought that was really interesting because it was a smaller conference, but there's a lot of really interesting insights that were in that I think we're going to be using a lot more in this year if I look back on Conversion Store. So let me pause there and I'll see if I can play this for you a little bit about what this session was about from LinkedIn. And I really apologize if this crashes. And again, normally this is the first year I'm doing this type of a setup, so I hope it does work correctly.
Hi everybody, it's Michael Tucker from Conversion Store. Hey, I'm going to just share a quick moment from you from the expo floor of Adobe Summit here where we're...
Okay. Okay, clearly that did not work the way I thought it would, so it did kind of crash, but no worries. Again, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what I wanted to show you there really was that LinkedIn had a really neat booth, and what they're doing is they're doing headshots, huge lineup when I was there to be able to get your headshot done by LinkedIn. And then they would touch it up for you and look great on your profile. So I'm hoping I can kind of beat the lineup tomorrow to get into that. But I thought that was a really great session. And so I'll jump back into these for a second here. One thing I do want to do, just as kind of a bit of a shameless plug, is to kind of talk a little bit about Marketo Minutes, which is our section, section on our homepage on conversionstore.com, and it's a YouTube channel. And so it set this up, I think, about a year or two ago, but it was all about, a lot of the content that we've seen in the user groups historically has been always about, here's different feature sets. But at the end of the day, you, the marketer, the marketing leader in your organization, you need to generate value and revenue and return on investment, and be showing a steady stream of moving people through the customer journey in your content. And so I think it would be really important to be able to kind of show the actual value of Marketo as an example. And we're going to expand upon that, I think, in this year, in 2024, to talk just a little bit about all the other different tech stacks or software that exists in the different tech stacks that are out there. So these are quick 5 to 15-minute sessions, if you will, that kind of start really with, what is the use case of why you want to be able to use some of this marketing technology inside of your company? It's not just for the sake of having the technology. It's got to have a reason and a return on investment for it. And so that's really what this is all about. So I hope you'll join us with that. It's www.marketominutes.com. And I'd highly recommend, if you get a chance to be able to do that, we'd love to be able to have you take a look at the content. And I think one of the things that we kind of talk about, as you're getting into this is about personalization and dynamic content. There's a couple of really neat case studies that are there about how you might be able to use dynamic content in your business to be able to communicate en masse to people. The last one that I want to talk about, I don't have the video available for it right now, really is around the Adobe Summit Lab sessions. And so the one that I went to today, so I've got some interesting ones tomorrow that are lined up for, I keep wanting to call it visible, Marketo Measure, which is multi-touch attribution software that has been around for a while. And being able to, the promise of tomorrow's one, I think if I understand the title and the description of it correctly, is talking a little bit about being able to use artificial intelligence to help build out some of these multi-touch attribution models. And the way that it was described in the Adobe Summit presentation this afternoon on the Marketo roadmap was that the way that we're doing multi-touch attribution now, the models that get built out have a certain degree of human bias as they're being created for some of the areas, right? What do you consider a W shape? What do you consider a U shape? When do you want to use those, and yada, 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 right? So those models inherently just right now require a degree of human assumptions, let's say, in order to be able to kind of fit which one's the right fit for you. So that's what I think the session is going to be about tomorrow. We'll see. We'll go into it. The one today was a little bit more about lifecycle modeling for inside of Marketo. So talked a little bit. I thought it was really interesting seeing some of the screenshots at the beginning, talking about the different ways that you might build out a revenue cycle model for different types of companies. And so, that is a topic. And I think I have some content on the Conversion Store blog. I'm going to dig that up, and we'll probably send that to you if anybody's watching this as an interest on how you structure a revenue cycle model or a life cycle processing model, I think it's called now, differently in different types of companies. So here's a life cycle model for a pharma company. Here's a life cycle model for a tech company. Here's one with a company that's business to business to consumer, and so on and so forth, right? Or one that's just a digital native company. So those are different types of models. So they showed you that, and then they went into a whole series of sections and said, okay, well, here's the basics of how you build in some elements of lifecycle processing. So really, and I should pull up a screen share on this. We'll do it tomorrow, but just talking a little bit about the success path, which is that green path. If you've ever seen a life cycle model that basically talks about the fastest point from a lead becoming aware of your business for the first time to being a paying customer. And really, what we want to be focusing on going forward is not just that part of the model. That's the old part. That's what it was originally built for. But we want to be able to talk about what happens after the purchase and in building ongoing impact and ongoing revenue. So it's an area that we're going to focus on a lot more around the go-to-market strategy, about being able to kind of nurture somebody to move them to that initial purchase. But then how does that initial purchase that you provide for your company? So think about this, marketers, right? How do you create the impact from that first purchase to satisfy someone so much so that they're willing to come back and become a repeat customer? My very first employer when I was in undergrad in college had this saying, and he said, it's not about the first sale, it's about the second one, which I always thought was really interesting because it really talks about the first sale is great to have, but if it's one sale and nobody ever comes back to you, that's really limited in terms of value, and it really doesn't say much about the value proposition of your business in the long run. And it means you have to start from scratch to find more clients, and then they're only buying from you once. So how do you turn that into something that becomes more of an ongoing, recurring relationship? And that's something that just helps you for long-term scalability for your business and helps you for long-term value, right? For ongoing value. And plus it's easier to do because as you build on a relationship, then that just becomes there's less friction and it's involved in being able to maintain those relationships. So that was a kind of an interesting piece around the lab sessions that we had happen today here. I'm going to take one more stab and see if I can pull up some of the information here. And forgive me, I'm very apologetic that this is done. I normally have these lined up a little bit more, so. No, these files aren't set up yet. So my bad, but we'll come back tomorrow and then we'll revisit this. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to pause for a moment and would love to see any chats that anybody has or any questions that you have. If you're watching the recording of this, so if you're in Europe and you obviously in Australia, right now it's I think 3 p.m. Tomorrow. I'm recording this on Thursday. It'll be on Wednesday, it'll be Thursday there. So happy to hear any questions right now. Obviously here in North America and in Europe, it's well into the evening. So I don't expect a lot of questions right now, but feel free to put any of them in as you're watching this tomorrow and beyond, and I'll respond back in the chat, and we'll be happy to have you share some of this content. And again, we'll come back with more interviews tomorrow to be able to talk a little bit more about the full experience around Adobe Summit. And finally, I'd love to get some feedback on this format itself. I hope that I'm accurately describing a little bit about this content. So after you see tomorrow's session and we talk a little bit more about some of the footage that was there and kind of what we're trying to build out, would love to kind of hear back from you. Will we do this differently next year? Probably. And a lot of that's going to be driven by feedback. So it's sort of trial and error in a lot of ways as we're working through new concepts, but I'm bolstered by it. I think it's a good idea altogether. And if it helps one more person understand more about the Adobe Experience Cloud ecosystem, or makes a more informed decision about making the investment to come to a conference like this, if that's this one here in Las Vegas, or if that's another one that's closer to you, then I just think that makes it better for the entire industry as a whole and the entire ecosystem for people to participate. Because the more of that participation that happens, the better insights, the more support that it means for the people that are participating in that. So I want to thank you in advance. I'll pause for a minute here. We'll put this on a little bit of a area for you to be able to kind of give some feedback to it. But would love to hear back from you and basically let me know what you think.